Good morning, Nate. Divers arrived here on the island yesterday. They'll target previously unsearched areas of the Abacos Sea right behind me, looking for new evidence. Now, some of the challenges in this search will be the unpredictable tropical weather down here and how much time has passed since Lynette first went missing.
She was gone for 7 weeks. And today, the search changed forever. A 154-foot Coast Guard cutter just showed up in the Abacos, Bahamas. Not to investigate, not to assess, to find Lynette Hooker. And what they brought with them tells you exactly how serious this has become. Here's what you need to know before we go any further. The GPS data from Brian Hooker's own devices just destroyed his entire story. And by the end of this video, you are going to understand exactly what those devices revealed and exactly why the Coast Guard is now searching specific locations, not random water. We are also going to show you a piece of physical evidence recovered from the Bahamian shoreline this week. Evidence that Brian Hooker told investigators didn't exist. Stay with us. The UCGC Margaret Norval, named after a woman, arrived off Manowar Key with 24 crew members and a 12-person dive team. They did not anchor. They did not check into their hotels. Before that cutter stopped moving, the rigid inflatable over the horizon boat was already in the water. Teams were already heading to search locations. That is not a courtesy visit. And on board that boat, heading to work for the second time on this case, Maggie, a Broward County cadaver K-9 on loan to the Coast Guard, trained to find what Brian Hooker does not want found. Lynette Hooker has been missing since she vanished from the Sea of Abaco. Her daughter Carly has been waiting 7 weeks. Like this video, share it. Lynette's name needs to stay in circulation, and you are part of how that happens. Today, that wait may finally be over. They didn't show up with guesses. They showed up with data. And what that data says about Brian Hooker's story, that's where this case cracked wide open. Brian Hooker had a story. He told it to investigators. He told it to Carly. He told it to anyone who would listen. Here's what Brian said happened. He and Lynette left the Abaco Inn at around 7:30 in the evening. They turned into White Sound Channel. The water got rough. Lynette fell from the back of the dinghy. He tried to find her. He couldn't. He drifted helplessly for 9 hours. A U.S. Marine, alone in the dark, unable to save his wife. That was the story. And for 7 weeks, every single search operation was built on it. There is one problem. The weather that night showed no significant wind, no significant waves. The conditions Brian described did not exist. That is independently verified. Then there is the second problem. Brian Hooker washed up on Marsh Harbor more than once. If you have no engine and no propulsion, the ocean does not return you to the same shore twice. It doesn't work that way. But the third problem is the one that ends his story entirely. Brian Hooker had a phone. Brian Hooker had a watch. Both devices recorded his GPS location throughout that night. And where those devices place him does not match the location he described to. Investigators, hear that again. His own GPS proves he was not where he said he was when Lynette vanished. Forensic investigators confirmed the GPS data from Brian's devices directly contradicts his stated timeline. This is the moment the case broke open. And here's what makes it worse. Brian Hooker was fired from AT&T for doing exactly this, masking the location of his company van, manipulating GPS data to hide where he was. He built a career at AT&T on deception, and he tried to use the same playbook in the Abacos. For 7 weeks, Maggie searched the wrong beaches. Divers went to the wrong water, and Brian Hooker watched from Sacramento. Now the Coast Guard is searching based on where he actually went, and what they found at those locations, you need to see it. So if Brian wasn't where he said he was, where was he? Because the Coast Guard didn't just follow the data, they followed it to specific locations. And what they found when they got there changes everything. The GPS data pointed to specific places. The Coast Guard went to every single one. North of a landmark called Witch Point on Marsh Harbor, there is a cutout of dark water, a man-made abandoned harbor. Not natural, not visible unless you know it is there. Close, very close, to where Brian Hooker's dinghy was recovered by local volunteers. The dive team deployed the ROV there today, an underwater remote-operated vehicle running search grids in that abandoned harbor while the rest of the team fanned out across the Abacos. Simultaneously, Maggie was working the northwest shore of Lobers, secluded beaches, post-hurricane damage, abandoned structures, places Brian and Lynette explored together on their paddleboards when things were still good between them. Here is why Maggie matters more than you might think. Experts confirm that a trained cadaver dog can detect decomposition within 3 hours of death. 3 hours. That means if Lynette Hooker was ever in that dinghy, even briefly, Maggie may be able to prove it. The dinghy is currently in Royal Bahamian Police impound. Maggie needs access to it, and that access is being coordinated right now. Then the Royal Bahamian Police launched their own vessel in support. The operation is joint, it is coordinated, and it is targeting locations the GPS data confirmed. Now here is the detail that nobody else is leading with today. Local residents found an article of clothing on the northwest shore of Lobers, aqua-colored, matching the bathing suit cover-up Lynette Hooker was last seen wearing at the Abacos Inn. They turned it over to the Coast Guard, along with the GPS coordinates of the exact spot where they found it. Brian Hooker told Search and Rescue that Lynette was wearing a plain black two-piece. Nothing else. No scarf, no cover-up, no fanny pack. He described none of those items. The clothing was there. Brian said it wasn't. Carly Allworth believes her mother is in the water, weighted down with the missing scuba weights from their sailboat Soulmate. Weights that have never been recovered. The mangrove channels near Snapper Point were a place Brian and Lynette explored together. Carly thinks that area matters. If you know the Abacos, drop what you think the Coast Guard should be looking at in the comments. Every piece of data points the same direction. And Brian Hooker, who called Lynette's daughter once, gave her a bogus story, and then went quiet, knows exactly where that direction leads. When your wife disappears, you stay, you search, you call her daughter every day. Brian Hooker made one phone call to Carly Allworth. One. He delivered his story. He put himself in Sacramento to care for his ailing mother. And then he was gone. He did not invite Carly to search. He did not ask to be present when they found Lynette. He sent a group text, telling Carly and her sister that a woman could take care of them, that she was really nice, and then he went quiet. Carly was 3 years old when Brian entered her life. She called him a father figure. He gave her one phone call. But here's what Brian did do this week. He hired a new attorney, one with direct DOJ experience, a former Department of Justice lawyer based in Michigan who understands exactly how federal prosecutions are built. You need to understand what that means. In the federal system, they do not arrest at 30 or 40% of a case. They arrest when they are nearly ready for trial. When the Coast Guard moves on Brian Hooker, they will have the full picture, the GPS data, the lies, the physical evidence, the history, because there is a history. 2 years before Lynette vanished, she told her friend Rachel that Brian had choked her, bruised her. She photographed her own bruises. And she told Rachel what Brian said to her afterward. I wish I'd finished the job. The FBI tip line is 1-800-CALL-FBI. If you know anything about Lynette Hooker's disappearance, call it. Share this video. Someone watching knows something. Brian Hooker hired a former DOJ attorney the same week the Coast Guard deployed to find his wife. What does that tell you? Tell me in the comments, because I think you already know the answer. The Coast Guard worked until after dark. They used every hour of daylight. And tomorrow morning at 8:30, they are back on the water at a new location on Marsh Harbor. This case is not over. Not even close. Before we go any further, remember who this is about. Her name is Lynette Hooker. She has a daughter named Carly who missed her birthday with her mother. She missed Mother's Day. Carly is not waiting for justice yet. She is waiting for something simpler. She just wants to know. The USAG say Margaret Norville is still on the water. Maggie is still working. The dinghy is still in impound. The scuba weights from Soulmate have never been found. None of this is finished. You do not need a body to prosecute a federal case. Brian Hooker has a GPS trail that contradicts his own story. He has a documented history of manipulating location data. He has a prior threat against Lynette's life on record. And he now has a former DOJ attorney on retainer. The federal system does not move until it is ready. And it is getting ready. Lynette Hooker deserves to come home. Brian Hooker deserves to answer for what the GPS says he did. The missing scuba weights from Soulmate have never been recovered. If the Coast Guard finds them, this case changes overnight. What do you think is in that water? Tell me below. Subscribe and hit the bell. Share this video so Lynette Hooker's name stays alive. Every case matters. Every clue counts. We will be back the moment the Coast Guard surfaces what they found.